Welcome, everybody, to this session of Conscious Cafe Global. Today we have our guest speaker, Pam Gregory, renowned astrologer. We are so looking forward to hearing her because if you're like many thousands of other people, you'll see her regularly on YouTube with a huge following. Respected advice. I really don't know how she manages to put out all the information that she does. Shaking her head.
Either do I.
Well, you do a great job. And what's great about the session that we have here at Conscious Cafe is that we're going to have some time where people can ask questions, and Pam doesn't often make us available to do that. So that is absolutely brilliant. And the title for today is the transformational session. The cosmic forces reshaping the world. And I think if you've been following Pam at all, you'll know this change is happening. She's been talking about this for a while. And every time we feel it reaches a peak, she has another peak of transformation that's happening. It seems to be speeding up, speeding up. Well, we seem to be, it feels like peak now. We're on the edge of the equinox, which we'll talk about. So if you haven't met Pam before, Pam Gregory is astrologer, nearly 50 years of studying. She's written 2 best-selling books, You Don't Really Believe in Astrology, Do You? And How to Co-Create Using the Secret Language of the Universe. Well, we know she has this huge following online. So we are so thrilled, Pam, to welcome you to Conscious Cafe Global, a live session. I'm going to hand over to you and we're going to do our applause. If we're all in the same room, you'd hear a big round of applause, but it's a show of hands tonight.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Gina, for that lovely introduction. Really appreciated. And this is really nice. As Gina said, I don't usually give an opportunity to ask questions. So this is very special in that way. And I hope it's going to be a little more informal than my YouTube videos or my interviews or whatever. And I think the subtitle for this evening was Leaving the Tram Tracks. And that's something that I feel really deeply in my bones. I think as humanity, we have gone round and round and round the hamster wheel of samsara for hundreds of thousands of years. And I think we are now absolutely in the crucible of change, where we are breaking out of the tram tracks that have held us for so long. And I want to go back to Lionsgate 2024, because there's a lovely lady that you may have heard of called Hope Fitzgerald. Wonderful name, Hope Fitzgerald. And she does a lot of spiritual work. She's a master dowser. Anyway, she and I were in cahoots because she was being very clearly guided by Merlin and Lord Yeshua to take a group up to Mount Shasta on the 8th of August, 2024. And she would be given very specific instructions about a meditation that had to occur pretty much at dawn on the 8th of the 8th. So she contacted me about the astrology of that day and that specific location, that specific time. So she said we were in cahoots going back and forwards. And she did take the group up to Mount Shasta at this time. They meditated, and Hope is incredibly psychic. And she saw this huge sword, like an Excalibur, sort of bejeweled sword, appear in front of her. And she realized that's what she had to use. And she was being given specific instructions the whole time by her guides. And with the help of the meditation group there, she said that she pierced the film. Those were her very words. Or those are the words she heard from her guides, that she pierced the film. And that Merlin and Lord Yeshua said that she had exceeded all expectations. This had never been done before. And I just got chills, listening to all of this afterwards, because I really felt that was breaking out of the tram tracks. This repetitive cycle we've been in, as I say, forever as humanity. So that was really, I think, the beginning of this particular period of time that we're now in, which is very unique. Now, as I go through this, at the start of this talk, I'm going to be covering some of the information I've covered in other videos. So some of you may have heard that before, but as we move through increasingly, I'm going to be sharing some very new information. Some of it literally I've just heard today. So, but it's all adding to this picture of, we're breaking out of the tram tracks. So We are at the end of some very, very big cycles. We're at the end of the precessional cycle, around 24,000 years. We're at the end of the 12,000 year descending Yuga cycle in the Indian Yugas. Specifically, there is a brilliant book written by the Indian scholar Bibhu Dev Misra, spelt Bibhu Dev Dev, Misra Misra, 3 separate words. And he has done just a vast amount of research into the Yuga cycles, and his book is called Yuga Shift. And what he lays out very clearly is not only are we at the end of the 12,000 year descending Yuga cycle, but we reach the end of the Kali Yuga, which is a period of about 3,000 years, and which is known as the Age of Darkness. This was the lowest point to which our consciousness could sink. We reached that end point on the 21st of March this year, 2025. And what is remarkable is Kelly Kolodny, who I love dearly, who is a brilliant channel for Archangel Raphael. She's channeled Archangel Raphael for 37 years, was totally unaware of that, of course. And Archangel Raphael said on that day, the gestation of the new galactic consciousness began, the new galactic human. And it is moving in trimesters, just as a pregnancy does. So as we move into the Libra equinox on the 22nd of this month, we will enter the final trimester, and birth will be given to this new galactic consciousness at the winter solstice, Capricorn solstice. Because, for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere listening to this, I mean, this is extraordinary, but that's, just the beginning. We are also at this time moving through the galactic current sheet. That only happens every 12,000 years, give or take 500. We know this time in history has been very specifically prophesied by the Hopi, the Maya, the Q'ero tribes. And so that is all adding to this picture. Also, all of the outer planets, you will have heard me say this so many times, all of the outer planets are moving into their new signs, which is over essentially a tight 18-month period from November 2024 to April 2026. And considering they all have different orbital periods of Saturn 29 years, Uranus 84 years, Neptune 165 years, Pluto 248 years, that is mathematically and astronomically astonishing. But they're all doing that. So by April 26, they will all have moved into their new signs. So they're moving from earth and water into air and fire. So they're moving from slowness, density, what has been very connected to materialism and status, and you're defined by your title and your bank account and your big car and all of that, into something that is much more experiential, much more ideas-based, much more a sense of community and collaboration and the collective coming together as one consciousness. And I just feel that so deeply. So we are in this period right now. On top of that, we are in the peak of solar cycle 25. These solar cycles last for about 12 years. They're related to sunspot cycles. And we are at the peak of that at the moment. That will continue into early 2026. But you're probably aware we are getting a huge number of solar flares coming in, sometimes even X-class flares. And, if we go back to 2018, we didn't have even a single M-class flare. I mean, we've just had dozens and dozens. Often we've had 24 in a day this year. That's the difference. And they activate our DNA. They are ingredients for our evolution, and they are bringing in new light codes. And it's really, I believe, down to the level of our consciousness as to how much of that light we can hold. But we are embodying more light codes. We are gradually, well, actually quite rapidly, shifting from density, from carbon to crystalline and towards homoluminous, towards the light body. Incredibly exciting. And you will be aware that in March 2023, because I've talked about it so many times. I had that vision it was the end of the night. I was just coming out of my dreams, and it was a super vivid kind of 30 seconds in the dream. If I walked into a room in the dream, there's nothing in it apart from pink, peachy, sparkly light and a mirror. And I walked over to the mirror and I was just pure light. I was just pure, my eyes, I'll never forget, my eyes were just extraordinary. I was just light body, and I started to levitate. And then the alarm went off, which was incredibly annoying. But that was a promise for humanity. That wasn't just a promise for me, that was a promise for humanity. And it is so pinpoint sharp and vivid. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. So it was very much a third eye vision in that dream. Now, what is also exciting right now, and Greg Braden has talked about this, and Cryon via Lee Carroll's channeling has talked about this, that our 24th chromosome is being reactivated right now. Now, every mammal, every other mammal has 24 chromosomes. We, about 200,000 years ago, it is believed, were interfered with in some way, and we had two of our chromosomes spliced together, chromosome 2 and chromosome 7. And by chance, I happened to be watching a video today, and this is on Lisa Wetzel's channel. Lisa, and then I think it's WETS, I think it's SEL, and she was interviewing Dr. John Ryan, who is a beautiful, amazing man. And he was, or possibly still is, professor of medicine. He's a medical professional. And he specialized in radiography, reading, you know, CT scans and that kind of thing. And before I get to what he was saying, what the 24th chromosome does for us is connect us to our multidimensionality. And that's what was removed about 200,000 years ago. Now, that left us with 23, which made us more human. It developed the capacity for speech and our neural network and that kind of thing, but we lost that multidimensional sense. Anyway, listening to Dr. John Ryan in that video, and you can watch it, it was from about a month ago, he was saying that normally telomeres appear, they're like the plastic caps on the end of shoelaces. They appear at the end of chromosomes. But in chromosome 2, he can see that the telomere is in the middle of the chromosome. So it was spliced together. And he didn't say this, but Greg Braden and Cryon have both said it was spliced together with chromosome 7 to leave us with 23. But Dr. John Ryan, a medical professional, can see this, the telomere is in the middle of that number 2 chromosome, which gives evidence of splicing. I hope I'm being clear on that. You know, this is big stuff. So, and he is also saying that the 24th chromosome is coming back online. Now, if you follow my work, many of you will have heard me talk about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which repeats every 36 years, very reliably. But this time around, it's repeating at 0 of Aries. And that it was kind of exact to the degree in August this year. It will be exact to the minute on the 20th of February next year. That hasn't happened since 4,361 BC. Almost 6,000 years. And I want to credit my very good friend, astrologer Heather Ensworth in America, who did painstaking research in her software. My software doesn't go back that far to find that. So that aspect alone hasn't happened for almost 6,000 years. And I've used this chart before. It's terribly primitive, but for those of you who don't understand much of the astrology, I've kind of drawn it up in a childlike fashion. Because I hope you can see it here, because in the heavens at the moment, we have Pluto, which has a 248-year orbit. That is in 120 degree aspect to Uranus. And there's also a dwarf planet called Sedna there as well. So Pluto's at just 1 degree of Aquarius, Uranus is at 1 degree of Aquarius, as is Sedna. They are both 60 degrees from this conjunction I've just been talking about at 0 of Aries, Saturn and Neptune. So this is a very symmetrical a sacred geometry, really, of the planets. And this particular astrological configuration, which is the kind of bread and butter of astrology, is essentially mythology and symbolism together with sacred geometry. This has never happened before, this configuration, we believe. I've heard other very sort of dyed-in-the-wool experienced astrologers like me also say this is completely unique. We believe nobody has challenged that, which means equally we are in very unique times. And we also, as astrologers, we always look at, okay, where was the seed point? Where was the original conjunction between these outer planets? Well, if we look at the slowest moving planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, their conjunction was in 577 BC. And that was really the time of Buddha and Pythagoras, and they were thinkers way ahead of their time, and they were speaking for the very first time about consciousness and about our divinity. So that was the seed point for what is now blossoming today in these few months we're looking at. This configuration will last till about the end of, this is 2025 to end of 2027, okay? And then it gradually starts to break up as we move into 2028. It's exact next July 18th, but it's within orb. It is operational and has been since the beginning of 2025. So 2025 to 2027, an incredibly not just rare, but unique astrological period to add to all the other things I've been talking about here. In addition to that, you've got Lee Harris with his new book, The Future Human. You've got Richard Rudd with his new book, The New Human. I think I've got those the right way around. The titles are so close. Richard Rudd, in my recorded conversation with him that's on my channel, some months ago, he talked about in his gene key system, which I don't understand, in his gene key system, on the 30th of January this year, Pluto entered gate 41. Don't ask me what that is because I don't understand his system. But he said what that did is to trigger the activation, because it triggered the activation of something called methionine, which is an amino acid which stimulates DNA. And that began on the 30th of January this year, a genetic mutation across all species. Across all species. And I believe he was just talking about on the Earth, but he might have been talking cosmologically. I've got to ask him that question. He sees the completion of that as the water nymph transforms or goes through a total metamorphosis into a butterfly, into a dragonfly. He sees the dragonfly emerging in 2027. So we are still within this unique configuration of time. I actually think it's a bit ahead of that. I think because of Kelly Kolodny's channeling, I truly think we are going to see the birth of a new consciousness at the end of this year, at the winter solstice, Capricorn solstice. Summer solstice for the southern hemisphere. And I think Kelly, I should have asked her this today actually, but I think in her channeling, Raphael sees this as the birth of babies from that point on will have galactic consciousness. But I also understand that us as adults are going to start to manifest that galactic multi-dimensional consciousness as well. I don't think it's just the babies. It's going to be widespread for reasons I'm going to come on to. Okay, the other thing I want to mention, which some of you may have heard me say, that as of the a very good, where do I begin? There's so much, there's just so much, there's just so much. It's a very good US astrologer called Rosie Finn. And she did research which took her 20 years, and she looked back 4,000 years, pretty much back to 1800 BC. And what she found, she was studying the orbit of Pluto, the planet Pluto. And planets normally orbit within a 23.5 degree orb of the ecliptic, north and south. They vary a little bit, but they broadly stay within that ecliptic band. Occasionally, planets stray beyond that ecliptic band. And what she found was when Pluto strays to the north, we get very tyrannical, authoritative governments like Hitler and Stalin, etc. When it moves out of bounds to the south, which it did on the 29th of August, just 3-4 weeks ago, it begins a period of revolution, much greater revolution of the power beginning to move to the people. And that isn't given on a plate by any means. Sometimes that is kinetic revolution. It's literally boots on the street. I mean, we saw this in the UK just last Saturday, very graphically. And please, you know, this is not any personal political opinion. I have no personal political opinions. I'm talking about the astrology. So I've taken a bit of a hammering on Facebook today, and I'm very fed up with it because I never express a political opinion because I don't have any. I'm interested in consciousness and human evolution using astrology as my language. So I'm just a bit hot under the collar about that. So we are seeing that all over the world. We're seeing it in America, we're seeing it in France, in Germany, in, you know, all over the place. And there was a recent speech by Viktor Orban, I think in the last couple of days. He is the Prime Minister of Hungary. And please, again, don't think I am a supporter of Viktor Orban. I know very little about the Prime Minister of Hungary. I live in England, but he was extreme in his challenge to EU leadership, extreme, and basically saying we need to go back, we countries in the EU need to go back to our sovereign nationhood and away from this EU superstate. So he was demanding the resignation of Ursula von der Leyen in the EU, and you can find that easily online. And I did say in the solar eclipse update that I expected leaders to begin to fall from power. Now, on the 17th of September that we're recording this, the Japanese Prime Minister's resigned, the French Prime Minister, fifth one in 2 years. The Nepalese government has collapsed, the Thai government has collapsed. People are demanding the resignation of President Macron. I think our UK Prime Minister is under severe pressure as I speak because of all that's been happening in the UK recently. And I could easily see resignation happening in this country, as well as whatever's going to happen in the EU. And we're only kind of 2 weeks into September. This is going to continue because, as I've said in dozens of videos, this is the time of the collapse of the old order and top-down leadership of all kinds, top-down structures, and gradually, and it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be boots on the street. You know, I rarely will be out on the street waving a placard. That's not who I am. I've got a different role in this. It's a revolution of consciousness. It's a revolution of love. It's a revolution of the choices we make. You know, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm going to step into my sovereignty, my inner authority, and make different choices, like turn off the news, like get rid of my television, like, you know, and be aware that the people you are surrounding yourself with, the conversations you're having, the social media you're digesting, define your reality day to day. That's your ongoing reality. And if you're, you know, watching the news and sharing gloom and doom with all of your, you know, friends locally, that's going to be your reality. It's up to you. It's your choice. Nobody forces you into either of those. And I've banged that drum to death, I think. Okay, we are now in eclipse season. Eclipse season, and that's why, you know, the eclipses that we had in September, and we've got another one coming up on the 21st, just a few days away. They are incredibly powerful because of the context of everything else that's happening. And so I do see, yeah, we can be love. Yeah, saw that. We, you know, we embody love. We embody New Earth. We live New Earth through ourselves as frequency before we can see it out there. Because people are saying, well, show me New Earth. Well, actually, unless you embody it as a frequency, you're not going to see it. You're going to think I'm a crazy woman. And that's fine too. So you create your reality by your own frequency, your own media consumption, your own thinking, or, all of that, that I've talked about at great length. So this is a big time of change, and things are going to speed up even faster from this point now. And they're not going to slow down, because we're into much lighter, much faster moving energy. But we're also, thank you, I love being that crazy woman. We are also into, I believe, much more galactic energy, which is very high frequency. And I'm going to give you some evidence for that in a minute. So the last three full moons of this year, in October, November, and December, are all supermoons. And what that means is that the moon is at its closest point, one of its closest points in its orbit to the Earth. And that heightens the potential seismic activity, any movement on the tectonic plates, but it also heightens our emotional reaction. It affects our psyche in a bigger way. Now, the next full supermoon, which is on the 7th of October, is very close. 7th of October, but already Pluto is slowing way down, and Pluto moves stationary direct on the 14th of October. So for a week either side of that, there are going to be big issues around power. And at the moment, where the power lies is a really big deal, because it lies in us, not out there, in us. And we have to embody that, not in a shouty way, not in a violent way, in us, in a peaceful, loving way, to say, I am going to love my earth, I'm going to love nature, I'm going to love my fellow human beings, and I'm going to die in a ditch to create a more loving world than this. And that's where I'm at in my life right now. There's another full supermoon that's very powerful on the 5th of November. And there we have Uranus opposing Mars in a very powerful place. Uranus in Gemini, where it's going to move retrograde, actually, out of Gemini back into the end of Taurus in a little while. I think it's around the 8th of November, but it moves fully back into Gemini on the 26th of April. And it's in Gemini right now. I read that as galactic communication. Uranus is the planet linked to the galactics, and we are a galactic. They've recently discovered, you may have read it yourself, that that the RNA and DNA from which life is created comes from the stars. They found it in meteorites. And the brilliant cosmologist, Dr. Jude Currivan, confirmed that to me personally and was very excited. That the building blocks of life that you and I are created with came from the stars. We are made of stardust. We are truly, there's no, we're not separate humans terrified of little green men arriving. We are galactic citizens, and the galactic family, I think, is already here in a pretty major way, which is what I'm going to come on to now. Through October and November, Uranus and Neptune are at the final degrees of their sign. Uranus is at 29 degrees of Taurus all through November. Neptune is at 29 degrees of Pisces all of November, December, January. When planets are at that final degree of any sign, it's quite a difficult degree in a way of any sign, because it's like the crisis degree. It brings things to a head around that symbolism. For instance, to give you an example, at Fukushima, which happened on the 11th of March, I think it was 2011, wasn't it? I think Uranus was at 29 of Pisces and Neptune was at 29 of Aquarius. So you had the massive tsunami, Neptune related to tsunamis, and that caused the whole Fukushima disaster, which was, the whole nuclear meltdown of that whole power center, which is related to Aquarius, ruled by Uranus. So you can see how the symbolism of both Uranus and Neptune, they were actually in mutual reception because they were in each other's signs, were all to do with water, tsunamis, radioactivity, spillage, etc. So that's to give you an example. So I do expect through the later months of this year some big earth changes, very big earth changes, some more seismic activity. And all I would suggest, because the earth has to shed these millions of years of trauma that she's been through, the earth is going through her own rebirth too. And many meditations are happening all around the world. And as you probably know, I have a daily one. It happens at 7 p.m. UK time for 15 minutes for free. We all come together. No Zoom, no link, no tech, no recordings. If you want to know the whole idea, there's a video called Daily Meditation, a video called Daily Meditation on my YouTube channel. You go to that and it explains the idea I had. But thousands of people are joining all over the world. It's not possible for everybody to do it every day, every night. But I believe in calming down the energy that we are making a difference, because so far almost all of the big earthquakes we've had, including an 8.8 off the coast of Russia, in Kamchatka, etc. We've had some big ones, 7.4 in the Drake Passage. We've had some really big ones. They've all been offshore, or the vast majority have been offshore, and there've been no casualties. So I think, the meditation is a really good thing to join in, because at least we feel we're doing something. And we add people in there in war zones and extremes, and a hideous situation in the Middle East that is just beyond horrific. And if you're sitting at home thinking, what can I do? Well, you can do that. You probably can't, be leading an aid convoy into the Middle East right now. It's simply not practical. Yes, you can send money if you're sure it'll get to the people. But one thing we can all do is sit on our sofas at home for 15 minutes for free and send love and peace to that area. We can all do that, because I know it's happening in thousands. I do feel there's a lot more seismic activity, as I say, going to happen for the rest of the year, and also more solar activity. And when we get to the Capricorn solstice on the 21st of December, that is when, as I say, Kelly Kolodny via Archangel Raphael has been saying very consistently that is the birth of the new galactic consciousness. In addition to that, Nancy Rebecca, who sees the blue light beings, she has, and I was a recorded conversation with her on my channel, she is seeing waves of blue galactic light coming in very strongly through December and January. Dr. David Clements, in a recent conversation with him, he was channeling his galactic team, who are very high level. And he said at the beginning of December, they were seeing the tip of the first wave of this new consciousness enter. I don't know if he meant our solar system or our Earth, but we live on Earth. So, either way. So they're all really seeing the same thing, this big boost in galactic consciousness, much heightened consciousness. Now, in addition to that, you may well have become aware of an interstellar object called 3I Atlas. And this was spotted, I think, around the 25th of July initially. It's called 3I Atlas because it's the third interstellar object like this which has been detected. I stands for interstellar, and Atlas stands for, I think it was the observatory that detected it. It was originally thought perhaps to be a comet, but its behavior is too anomalous to be a comet. So I think everybody has decided, the astrophysicists, the cosmologists, etc., have decided this isn't a comet. And a very good person to follow on this is a young, very brilliant guy called Stephan Burns, Stephan with an F. And I've interviewed him on my channel. Very bright guy, seismologist, magnetics expert, geophysicist, astrologer, and various other things. He's quite a polymath. And he's very factually based, as well as being a very spiritual guy. So he's been talking about this a lot. So And what is remarkable is this thing, whatever it is, the center hard core of it is the size of Manhattan. And if you take into, it's about 40 kilometers across, I think, and if you take into account the tail, the plasma tail that it has, apparently it's half the size of the sun, half the diameter of the sun. It's traveling currently at 130,000 miles an hour. Nobody knows where it's come from. It's come from, interstellar space. And bizarrely, traveling at great distance and great speed, it is aligning with our ecliptic plane, the orbits of all of our planets around the sun. And it is doing that within a 5-degree alignment, 5 degrees either way. And the accuracy of that is quite phenomenal when you think this is a slingshot of a something or other that's traveled, I think, billions of miles, not just millions. I believe it's billions, to align with our with our ecliptic plane. That's pretty remarkable. Nobody quite knows what it is at this point, but it is aligning with Mars. It's kind of on a flyby through our solar system. So it comes to its closest point to Mars on the 3rd of October. It comes to its perihelion, the closest point to the sun, in the last week of October. I think it's particularly the kind of 22nd of October, but the last week of October. But at that point, it is behind the sun. So there's the kind of exact Earth-Sun 3D, a 3-eye atlas alignment in a straight line, but no telescopes from Earth can actually view it because it's behind the sun. That's its closest point to the sun. The closest point to the Earth, if it stays on its current speed and trajectory, is on the 19th of December. Right on as we tip into that Capricorn solstice. I think that's pretty remarkable. Yes, some people are saying it's a ship. To be honest, nobody really knows. I do believe personally it's very high intelligence that it's bringing. I mean, it's clearly high intelligence to be flying around like this from such a far distance. I believe that it is bringing very high level information and high intelligence to Earth for our greater good, for humanity. I profoundly believe that. I'm going to add to that in a moment. I always believed that we would get to this new consciousness with a game changer, with a jump. It wasn't going to be you've got to do A, then you're going to do B, then you're going to do, it isn't going to be linear plod, 3D linear time plod. It was just never going to be that. It was going to be a quantum leap. And I think, in addition to all of the things I've talked about tonight, 3-eye atlas is a game changer. But that's not all. That's not all. So remember that in numerology, this is a 9-year. If you add, 20, 25, 2 and 2 and 5, it makes 9. That's very much in numerology an ending. And I did a video with my good friend, Kathy Rose. We filmed it, I think, in December last year. And the title was Endings and Beginnings, because it was all about, very clearly in the astrology, seeing the turbulence, the churn of the ending of many, many things, actually many personal relationships in your life, many jobs, many personal situations, but many, big, big, big cycles. And then when you go into 2026, 2 plus 2 plus 6 is a 1 year. It's actually a 10, but in numerology, you knock off the 0 and call it a 1. And that's all about new beginnings. And that, of course, is the year when all of the outer planets are going to be in their new signs. Saturn, Neptune, as I said, move into 0 of Aries, 044 of Aries, February 20th, 2026. And the final one is Uranus moving back into Gemini, galactic communication, on the 26th of April. Then they are all in their new signs for the rest of those cycles. So it's fresh energy, it's a whole, and all, principally air and fire, moving fast, and it's very exciting. And so, but what what has come out literally in the last couple of days And so this is very, very new information. So, and please understand, I'm not a cosmologist, I'm a humble astrologer, so I'm just really picking up this information which is coming, but it is coming from the science community. You know, it's not just kind of, you know, Auntie Elsie in a back room, it is coming from the science community. That they have now detected another orbiting body which has come in, and this is called Swan R2, capital R2. And I believe Swan was the technology which first spotted it. And this, unlike 3i Atlas, because 3i Atlas is just on a flyby, as it were, through or past our solar system, Swan R2 is a returning visitor, as we understand it right now. It has a 22,554-year orbit. Apparently, it was last here, and I've yet to check all the facts on this. I just haven't had time today. At the end of the last ice age, as we started to move into early agriculture and drawing star maps and also setting up sacred sites as well. There seemed to be a jump in humanity's evolution and intelligence at that time. So that is now coming towards us. I don't know what the speed is, but it's coming towards us pretty rapidly. But it is on a repeating orbit, even though that orbit is incredibly long, as I say, more than 22,000 years. Bizarrely, at its current speed and current trajectory, it is going to be at perihelion, i.e. its closest point to the sun, at exactly the same time as 3i Atlas. It's also going to be behind the sun. So they're both behind the sun, not visible from Earth's telescopes. So as I say, please take this information quite lightly, because I'm literally, I know Stephen Burns has referred to it in a recent video, but it's very, very new information. But they are both coming in at speed, incredible, that they are so rare. I mean, the 3i Atlas, we believe, is kind of just once in a lifetime sort of thing, or in many, many lifetimes. But Swan R2, we believe, is on a repeating orbit, admittedly a very long one. It is just beyond bizarre that in late October, they are both going to be at perihelion behind the back of the sun. Now, they're not going to be kind of 10 yards apart, you know, they're going to be a great distance apart, but nevertheless, in the great scheme of things, it is still remarkable. And a good friend of mine, Sally Sharon, reminded me today that Edgar Cayce, you may know, was an incredible prophet. He died in 1945. And before he died, he predicted that on October the 29th, 2025, that a blade of light would appear in the sky, a blade of light. Now, I believe, and I can't give you evidence of this, and I can't give you an Excel spreadsheet either, I believe that these galactic bodies, whatever they are, that are obviously of high intelligence, are here for the greater good of humanity because of the, you know, the whole context of what I've been talking about here. I believe that one of the things they might be doing, I've had conversations with people in the last couple of days about this, is activating our heart chakra so we can feel more love for this love revolution, this love consciousness we're stepping into. I also believe that they could be aiding the energy lines, the energy grids on the Earth to vibrate at a higher frequency. Now, I don't know any of those things. I can't prove them to you, but that's what I personally feel. I believe overwhelming, you know, these are not, you know, these are not scary. I mean, if the galactic beings wanted to polish off humanity, they've had several 100,000 years to do it, and they haven't done it yet. So I wouldn't worry. I really wouldn't worry about that. I think they are only here to reconnect to us as part of our galactic family. I truly believe, and I feel really goosebumpy, and yeah, I'm getting chills too. I honestly believe we are at the most incredible precipice of this massive jump in consciousness, which is unprecedented. And I've talked to many people about this. I was talking to Vivian Chauvet recently, that's on my channel. She's an Arcturian ambassador at this time. And she said, we are on the precipice of this new consciousness. I've asked many, many people, including Dr. Jude Currivan, the cosmologist, you know, is this a completely unique jump in consciousness for humanity ever? Yes, she said, it is. And I've asked that question to many people. I've asked that to Dr. David Clements. I think I've asked that to Archangel Raphael as well. I've asked it to as many floating beings that happen to be passing me that question, because I believe this is the biggest jump in consciousness that humanity has ever made. And I know this bit is more woo-woo because I haven't got the evidence of that, but I hope I have shared with you some other evidence that is more grounded in science, more grounded in cosmology, and more grounded in astrology. And so as we move into 2026, this 1 year, this new beginning year, we have a very powerful solar eclipse on the 17th of February. And that is when the sun, and that's in Aquarius, which is the sign of the galactics ruled by Uranus, and the sun is square to Uranus. So we are having a lot of Uranian activations in the lunations. You know, pretty much, I did a session with Anne Tucker, which was very detailed in the astrology, looking at the next 12 months, because she had heard from her angels very clearly that this flash of light and this shift in consciousness that the angels for Anne Tucker have been talking about persistently and consistently for years was going to happen within the next anniversary, and she read that as before next August. And so she'd asked me to look at the astrology from this August 25 to August 26. So you can check out that video for all the detail. It's mind-numbingly detailed in astrological information. But anyway, so a lot of Uranus in the lunations. Uranus is the planet linked to earthquakes, volcanoes, the awakening, truth coming to light. Are we seeing a lot of truth coming to light? You betcha. It's fire hosing out. And but it's also linked, the planet most linked to the galactics. So that is a very important solar eclipse on the 17th of February. 3 days later, we have that exact conjunction for the first time in almost 6,000 years between Saturn and Neptune at 0 Varies. Remember, that repeats every 36 years, but not at 0 Varies. And then 26th of April, Uranus moves fully into Gemini until 2033. And the most exact point for that unique configuration I talked about is the 18th of July. So that's very powerful. However, I just want to say that what's happening this year is, and I've done so many videos on this, the big picture, the metamorphosis for humanity. I've done one talking about 0 to 2 degrees of all signs. That what's remarkable is that there's so many outer planets between 0 and 2 degrees of their signs. And that is, you know, the initiation, the beginning. We're getting the message over and over and over again. It's a new beginning. And so this year, they are at that 0 to 2 degrees up until about April next year. Then Saturn starts to move on more quickly. By July, yes, that unique configuration I shared with you is exact, but it's at 4 degrees. Now, 0 to 2 degrees is known as the world axis, which is when really big events is, you know, they're thrown out onto the public stage as, you know, really big stuff. 4 degrees has gone beyond that world axis, but that is when the configuration is most exact. So I can, you know, this whole period, really, I mean, we're in the mush of the chrysalis, as I've said so often. This whole period is incredibly transformative. We are going through, I believe, a biological change. Spiritual people can see this biological change in the amount of light we are holding. And so I believe this real real power period is for the rest of this year and into perhaps the early months of next year. But I'm very focused on that Capricorn solstice because of what Dr. David Clements and Kelly Kolodny have been sharing. So what to do? What to do? Stand in your love and stand in your light. Stand in your love and stand in your light. As I say, with every meditation we do every day, stand in those very positive emotions: love, joy, peace, compassion, gratitude, freedom. Stand in your sovereignty. Do not dip into polarizing emotions. Because if you do that, I see, and I've talked about this a lot too, many people are talking about this bifurcation. Yes, I do think there's a dimensional split happening now. We are all eventually going to get on the unity consciousness plane, but some of us are going to go at a faster pace than others. We've chosen fast track. But we're all going to get on the unity consciousness plane. Everybody is moving in that direction. But if you're in fear, it will take you longer. If you're in love, you're going to shortcut, because there could not be, and authenticity, by the way, is a very high frequency as well. Only you choose that. Only you choose that on a moment-to-moment basis. Be more aware of your choices than ever before. Be more aware of your focus than ever before. Stick post-it notes all over your house. What's your frequency? What are you thinking? Love is the shortcut. Yeah. Lock onto love as your docking station. Look what love built. We're welcoming in an ever-expanding consciousness of love. Think of that mantra I use in the meditations every day. We're welcoming in an ever-expanding consciousness of love. So if you can't think of a better one, that is a great one to use. And feel excited. Ignore all the gloom and doom that's happening out there. How do you even know it's true? Stand in your love, stand in your light, come together with like-minded others and just embrace all that we have coming to us. This is a completely unique opportunity for us to step into this new galactic love consciousness that is really beyond words. And yeah, I hope that's helped, and I'm dead on time. I think we need a 5-minute break, don't we?
Your timing is impeccable when you said 8.
I know.
Right, you're marvelous, and I think we all need to draw a breath. So yeah, why don't you have a 5-minute break, and then it's 8 o'clock. Well, it's 19:59, 59 minutes to the hour, and I'll call people back at 8:05. Meanwhile, everybody can get a cup of tea or write down a question or have a 5-minute meditation or whatever. But should we see you in 5, Pam? 5 or 6 minutes?
Yeah, super dope.
All right then. And I'm just gonna ask you a question actually, because Diane put in the chat about that lovely song Joni Mitchell about We Are Stardust and we have to go back to the garden. And I've just been listening to a Bill Bryson audiobook on the body, and he talked about how, we started out as cells, then we became fish, then we became humans. And I thought, how does that resonate with being a galactic being and made of stardust? I'm just asked that question about the narrative of the evolution and being a galactic star being.
Yeah, Greg Braden talks about this. He talks about this he believes that in fact, he's written books about it, that we are not, we did not come from apes. There was a genetic jump. Are you hearing me okay, Gina? There was a jump, and that was the genetic mutation, because there was a jump in our evolution that got us to a very different place very quickly, even though we share a lot with those beautiful creatures.
Yeah. I've got a question here, Marilza. What's the impact? What impact will this have on the role of technology? The way we have technology in the world, the various technologies.
Yeah, I'm going to make a whole video on this soon, because I believe we're at a very important choice point with this. Because I think it is very, very easy to become seduced by some very clever stuff out there right now. And I think I think it is very important. For me, it's up, people make their own choices. I'm not here to influence or make decisions for anyone. For me, I will always follow my organic intelligence and evolution. I will always take that choice because I know, and Gina and I were talking about this earlier, that if you're using AI a lot, MIT and Harvard have done some research and found people who are heavy users of AI are losing cognitive function. So, but in terms of the technology going forwards, I think galactic technology is clearly something that we are not aware of yet. I think it's phenomenal. And I think there's a very, very, very positive use for technology when it is not profit-based, when it is developed by consciousness that is for the good of the highest good of the people or the beings and the highest good of nature and the earth and the other planets, the highest good of the cosmos. When it comes from that without profit motive, then I think we've got something we can really work with. And I think I'm guessing the galactic beings operate like that. You know, it's for the highest good of all. So I think that will be very exciting. They can share technology which can help us to clean up our oceans and pollution on the land and things super, super fast. So I'm looking forward to that.
Brilliant. Chris Cooper's asking, if this really is the biggest leap in consciousness that humanity has ever made, what does it look like in everyday life for people who are embodying this new galactic love consciousness? And how do we know we're on the right path?
Okay, well, the first easy answer is nobody knows because we've never done it before. So we can't go back to any other previous context because we're creating it in every moment. We as humanity are creating this in every moment. We're putting the brushstrokes on the blank canvas, and the canvas is more blank than it's ever been. But I think we can say some things for sure. I think we will live with greater focus and intentionality because we'll learn how to manifest much more efficiently. We'll learn focus and attention are the way to do it. We will learn the mastery of our frequency. We'll know when we're dipping and how to shift that, how to change it. We will become much more psychically sensitive. Our clairs will become more activated, clairsentience, clairaudience, etc., for all of us. We will live almost like the Lemurians, the ancient Lemurian people did. And I always go back to that because that I think is the most perfect civilization we can refer to, where they had a sense of complete oneness with all of nature. They lived in harmony with nature. They didn't kill to eat at all. They didn't kill animals to eat. And everything was in balance, in harmony with nature for the greater good. And they principally lived in their light body. They could heal each other very easily. They were telepathic. They could read each other's energy field. So it was impossible to lie. It's impossible to be deceptive because you'd be spotted straight away. So that is the kind of model I think we can use to move forwards. And they had great love for animals. You know, this is linked to dolphin and whale energy as well. So I think the animals are way, you know, the humans are the barbarians in this. I think the animals are way ahead of us in that evolution. And the whales and dolphins are 15th dimensional, I understand, and they are helping to lead our evolution as we speak.
Wow. Tara's asking, if you're being faced with situations that bring down your vibration, real ones, will part of this transformation period start lifting these hard situations? She said she's thinking personally, and for those around the world faced with real hard situations that they can't get out of, will those situations in any way change?
I believe they will. And again, it's just my belief. I can't give you evidence for that. But, you know, because people often write to me and say, you know, why aren't you out there with placards doing something about that terrible horror in the Middle East? Well, if I get angry about that, that's not going to help the people on the ground. It isn't going to help me, my frequency, and it isn't going to help the collective. It doesn't help, you know, it's a lose, lose, lose. And that's why I've said the meditations we do, and many people are doing, as I say, across the world, organizing their meditations. We have to help people in those situations because it's almost, you know, how would you feel love and joy if you're being bombed? It must be horrific. They can't do that very easily, if at all. So we have to help them. We have to raise the collective consciousness enough so war never happens again. So we never hurt another living being. It's impossible to even consider hurting another living being. And before you ask, I haven't eaten meat for 50 years before anybody asks about that. So, that's unthinkable for me. And we all have to get in, I'm certainly not a paradigm of virtue, but if we got to a level of consciousness where it was unthinkable to hurt another living being because we felt such empathy with them, war stops. That kind of horror stops instantly. I hope that helps.
I think Jonathan's question follows on here. What will the world look like with people at different stages of transformation?
Well, we are each on our own individual trajectory. So in a sense, there are 8 billion different realities, because I actually believe that everything comes from inside of us and nobody can feel exactly the same reality as us, essentially. I think it's very individual. So one answer at one level is we're just in our own bubble, creating our own, it's our inner state that mirrors out. But as I say, I think they are two broad collective realities. And so we will associate with people who are on the same frequency. We will link together in families of frequency, whether that's physically or online. And so therefore, people who are living in fear, my understanding is that they will continue in that trajectory until they learn to master their frequency. And that's no judgment. We've all been in fear in the past, me included. So they will continue on that path until they better learn to master their frequency, but we'll all get on the unity consciousness plane at the end of the day. So, but it will be a very different reality, I believe, to the people who are going to sort of take a jump as we move forward. And please don't ask me what the percentage or numbers are. You've got to Google God for that. I haven't a clue. But I know it's coming in to be accessible to us. If we can raise our frequency enough to reach it, we're on that trajectory. And remember that you're changing timeline in every moment. Every time you shift your energy, your emotion, you're shifting timeline. We're doing it thousands of times a day.
I was asking this question. I think on the 22nd of the 10th, Neptune will be retrograding back to Pisces, so that
Yep.
we will be the day when the three-eye atlas will be aligning with either the sun or Earth, cannot remember. But also, I think Jupiter will be squaring Chiron the very next day, on the 23rd of October in Aries. Question: is the addition of the three-eye atlas to this sky picture going to influence the normal interpretation of this sky configuration?
Oh, I'm sure it is. Don't ask me all of that now. I mean, this is kind of hot off the press. So I think what will happen is, and this has been a very big question for me, and I've mentioned it in several videos, how's my astrology going to work? What I spent 50 years in this lifetime studying. I think we will start to see, as I know they already are, the planets as probability waves of consciousness, all operating at a slightly different resonance. It is the Pythagorean harmony of the spheres. And we will tune in just as we tune into each other, because each of us got a slightly different frequency. It's individual to us. We will do that with the planets. So there's a much greater sense of flow and malleability and co-creation with the probability waves of consciousness, which are the planets, than we have at the moment. It's going to be much less mechanical, much less structured. Our whole reality is more malleable and more fluid. So I don't know, currently sitting here, having heard about three atlas about 2 weeks ago, exactly how that's going to work out. So forgive me for that. But that's my view, that it's going to be one organic flowing consciousness with every aspect of it, including the planets, being a unique fractal expression of that consciousness.
Rose is asking, why doesn't Virgo have its own ruling planet?
Well, some people think it's Chiron.
Okay, and why is it sharing Mercury with Gemini, and what effect does this have on general astrological interpretation?
I don't know why. I don't know why it's the same. I mean, that's a question from about 2,000 years ago. But a lot of astrologers are now saying that Chiron should be allocated rulership of Virgo, and that makes sense because it was only discovered in the late 70s. Remember, think it was 77 Chiron was discovered. And it's all about health, you know, healing, wounding, sickness, and then health. And Virgo is very related to that as well. So that makes sense. So I think in time, there'll be a reallocation of rulership.
I've got Tara asking, do astronomical events trigger awakenings? If so, what happened late 2017, 2018?
I can't remember the exact astrology for that. To be honest, sitting here, I'd have to check. But there has been a series of awakenings really since the harmonic convergence in 1987. It's gone in waves. You know, there's 1987, there was 2012, 2020, because we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0 of Aquarius that Pluto is now activating again. So there'll be a series of steps, as it were, or activations that are all moving us towards this higher consciousness. But we're in the thick of it right now.
Emma's asking, it would be great to hear your thoughts on if there will be changes in the education and financial sectors, and how, if there's any specific astrological aspects that determine these in the next couple of years.
All of that. You know, I've been talking about that for the last 2 years, because anything which is a top-down structure where you've got a big institution, corporation, government, it's all going to go. It's all going to go. The legal, financial, educational, medical, the whole lot is going to change radically. And we are going to be much more sovereign. You know, people are taking kids out of school in greater numbers now to homeschool. The whole financial thing, absolutely, because I think fiat currency is going to, a lot of it is going to disappear or reduce further in value. And as we get further into our future, we'll think less about money. I mean, indigenous tribes don't have money. They share everything. They don't pay for child minding. You know, they just share everything. And so as we move forwards, if money still exists, and it may be some kind of a new currency that will be invented, but we will think less about it because we'll have less of a sense of survival. And I've got to have the money in the bank to survive, because we'll be coming together in community in a bigger way.
And it's all happening so fast. It's not like something when you read history and you see like the Victorian era and how things changed over 60 years, it's like, whew, we're right in the middle of it all, and it's all happening around us. I think I've got a question from someone called Zoom, and they're saying, will there be some big changes in UK politically and for the general consciousness? And I think you might have covered.
I think any hour now there will be political changes.
It's all up for grabs, isn't it? It's funny, you know, when you present such a huge picture of the planets, the galaxy, and then I look at my clutter here, and you know, it's like, it just puts in perspective. I have to say that in my everyday life, when I look at the small stuff and when you hear about the big stuff. Pam, I think I've been through all the questions, unless somebody finds out there's one I've missed out. I think I've got them all. Please, Lucy, any advice for how to spend these big dates, the actual dates you mentioned on the astrological calendar, being still, looking inwards, or being more outwards focused, or is it very individual?
I think it's probably pretty individual, but I always recommend stillness. Bare feet on the grass. I know we live in England, you know, a lot of us, and I know Lucy does. Bare feet on the grass, if you can bear it. Just hugging a tree, being in nature, doing breath work, meditating, and just feeling, you know, feeling love. That's the best we can do. And also do understand, with everything I've shared, and I've shared a lot of information, I know, in, you know, 45 minutes or whatever it was. Even if I'd shared none of that evidence with you, know that we as humanity can create this jump from the invisible. We can create it. If we come together in numbers, and it was none of the ending of those big cycles, none of what I've talked about, we can still create the vision I've been talking about. If we come together, and it doesn't take thousands and thousands of us, it takes a relatively small number of a few hundred of us to be very clear and focused and manifest a much more loving world than we currently have right now. And as I say, I will die with my boots on. And at the end of my life, I will say, I cannot have worked harder to stand in my love and my light in this lifetime. That's what I want to be able to say at the end of my life.
I think you've talked about focus being a superpower, and I think that, you know, you met these key dates. That's a good time to sit with an intention, with a focus, because if this energy is an amplification, that's what you want to amplify, isn't it? Not just
100%. You know, use that. If you can't think of anything better, use that rolling mantra. We're welcoming in an ever expanding consciousness of love. That will serve you well.
And I've got a couple of little ones here. I think Michelle, is it flat? I can't read the word. Is flat current? If flat currency is collapsing, does the astrology say anything about investing precious metals?
Yeah, she means fiat.
Oh,
Fiat,
fiat. Okay, fiat.
I would think, and not flat currency. I would think fiat. And
Okay.
probably autocorrect. I think I know nothing about crypto. I don't have any crypto. I know nothing about it. I do think precious metals are probably a good idea simply because it's something tangible. And I can see in future the possibility of some gold back or precious metal backed currency of some kind. Don't ask me how that manifests or what it is. You know, I'm just not an expert in that. But when everything else is more volatile, I think that kind of solidity could be quite grounding.
Okay. How do you envisage, Rose, how do you envisage the legal sector changing?
Radically,
It's the answer to everything, isn't it? Fast and yes.
radically.
Yes and fast.
But for the highest good of the people, I would say that would be good.
There is so much change in vibrations and frequencies around us. How do we deal with feeling physically drained and unable to think and focus?
Bare feet on the grass, drop into stillness, close your eyes, and just follow your breath.
You know, walking on grass just lowers blood pressures. It doesn't matter what the weather. Get out, put your feet on the lawn.
Yeah.
Unless you live in a high-rise apartment in a city, but get out.
And drop into your breath. Close your eyes. Just watch your breath. Just drop into your breath. That's simple. And
Yeah.
do that as often as you possibly can. Breath work, candle gazing, that kind of thing is really helpful. But stillness, drop it, because it's going to be the energy is going to be super agitated out there, even though it's beneficial energy of change, because there's so much turbulence in the field, because the high frequency energy is causing the lower frequency energy to collapse. That's why we're seeing all these leaderships collapsing, because anything not born of love is collapsing. There's churn, there's agitation in the field. And so stillness is what you need to practice, and it becomes default. The more you practice stillness, the more it will serve you.
That's the key thing, really, isn't it? It's so, there's so much happening at such speed in such a big way that just come back to center. That's the mantra, isn't it? Just to be in yourself and
Drop into your heart, drop into your breath, and be with yourself. And if you can get yourself, your own energy sorted out, everything cascades from that. Your state of being is your absolutely top priority. Everything cascades from that. And look at diet as well. Yeah, just be as clean as you can. You know, be as clean as you can. If you're eating junk food, processed food, smoking, drinking, that's not going to be great. Get as pure as you can, particularly during these months of transition. And remember, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. It's not all going to be cracked by April or July. I don't want to, I just want to be very clear on that. We're not going to be, okay, sorted, I'm now the dragonfly, everything's done. We are going to evolve forever to infinity. But it is a very concentrated and accelerated period of humanity's evolution. That's what this talk has been about. It's not the end at the end of 2027. It's just the end of the beginning of this accelerated, concentrated period of evolution. I just want to be really clear.
Well, to quote the character in Toy Story, infinity and beyond, really, off we go, isn't it, really? Keep calm, carry on is the British mantra, isn't it?
Yes,